Good morning, everybody. Please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Cabinet Member for Economic Recovery Decision Day, taking place from the Walton Suite at the Winchester Guildhall. The time is 9:30 a.m. My name is Councillor Martin Todd, Chairperson and Cabinet Member for Economic Recovery. Please can I advise that this meeting is being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website. In addition, a video recording of the meeting will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Please can I remind any officers joining virtually to turn off their cameras and mute their microphones until invited to speak. Please can I also remind members to speak clearly and to remember to use your microphone. Finally, can I please ask everyone to ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are either on silent or switched off entirely. Thank you. Right, we have one item of business today. I think two public deputations. Added to the roster there.
Yes, we've got Jackie Porter and Peter Mills, and then visiting councillors Horrell and Murphy.
And Conrad Hay as well, is that right?
Oh yes, and Mr. Hay.
Right, so we have three visiting members of the public and two visiting councillors. What I suggest we do is, rather than doing the deputations first, if you could quickly, Mr. Hickman, if you could quickly introduce the paper, and Ms. Haskett as well, and then I will ask the members of the public to make their deputations and then the councillors.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is the annual report on our traffic regulation order programme. It's a little bit later than usual because we've obviously had a few issues to deal with COVID, so we've sort of revamped the programme for this current year. But what the report does is it gives you a progress on, or an update progress on our 2021 programme, and it presents the next 2 years programme, so the remainder of this financial year and the year after. So we're presenting it as a 2-year programme this year. As I said, we have got some changing priorities. We've had to put into the programme some schemes that we didn't originally have in the programme, so it has affected things and it has had a knock-on effect. We put some major resources into schemes on the Broadway Market, for the Sunday Market and the Square in Winchester and Great Minster Street. We've also been supporting the market towns with outdoor hospitality schemes and other areas in the city. We've had to sort of implement cycling parking in different locations across the district and cycling lockers and things like that. So we've picked up a lot of extra work as a result of the pandemic. But what we've done is we've merged all of that into effectively a 2-year programme, which is presented in this report. Just for information, the City Council do run the traffic management agency for the County Council, so it's not directly one of our functions. We run it under an agency arrangement for the County Council. They effectively delegate that duty to us and pay us to deliver that service for them. So we do have to abide and we do have to follow the County Council's rules in terms of what we can and can't put into our programmes. And that has had an effect, particularly in terms of residential parking schemes, because the advice from the County Council is we shouldn't be doing those with County Council's resources. So if we want to pick those up, we have to do them through our own resources, which does put additional pressure on the team. And I just wanted to point out this is quite a large programme. We do only have 2 full-time equivalents in this team, so we only have a limited resource. So what we've done is we've prioritised this programme. We've listed in paragraph 8.2 of the report the criteria that we used. So the first one is obviously safety, that's a sort of overriding priority. And then we have a number of schemes we have to accommodate because they're related to new developments, and we have to fulfil various requirements and commitments from those developments. So those 2 categories are the ones that we have to do. And then there's also a list of schemes which Hampshire County Council require us to do, which again we have to put into our programme. And then that leaves us with a bit of space to put other things in. So how we prioritise those are things that link to sort of our corporate programmes and priorities, such as the parking and access strategy and city movement strategy. We also have some budget savings to deliver, which require us to do some work to achieve savings for the council in relation to our budget. And then we have to finish off some experimental traffic schemes that we have in place already, and completion of other traffic regulation matters that are already in progress for one reason or another. So that's how we prioritise this programme, and that's how it's presented. Just a bit of information, Hampshire County Council have told us that they do not require one of the schemes in the programme, which is the Shawford various roads, which is in the 21-22 programme, because that was related to a car park scheme that was coming forward, which is no longer coming forward. So that does create a gap in the programme. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very helpful. Right, I'd like to move to the public participation on this point. As mentioned, I have three people, Conrad Hay, Jackie Porter and Peter Mills. Mr. Hay, would you like to make your deputation?
Thank you. Yes, it's Mr. Haig.
Oh, Hay, sorry.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I welcome the opportunity to put residents' views forward. I am here today representing not just myself, but the views of St Leonard's Road residents. And as you will have seen from the many emails that you've had, that we are quite discontent with the mechanism that's been put in there for parking and the effects it's having on us directly. I will come on to some of the issues around that. The action suggested today is absolutely the bare minimum required to make the unmarked permit scheme that's been put into St Leonard's Road safe and useful. At this present moment in time, I'm sure it was done with very good intentions, and we understand the need to experiment with these types of actions. It is actually serving no purpose at all or any benefit other than to raise revenue from the residents of St Leonard's Road, for which it's quite a substantial amount. Whilst I understand why a decluttering concept has been put forward, has been poorly conceived and poorly implemented and badly designed and really doesn't work. And I urge you to prioritise the work set out for St Leonard's to actually mitigate some of the effects the permit scheme has had. So effectively, the space is too inadequate for the residents of St Leonard's Road. If you, before the permit scheme, around 20% of Dell Road was available.
We'll find you a microphone because it helps the recording.
Thank you. Before the scheme was implemented, around 20% of Dell Road was available as overflow parking in St Leonard's Road. Dell Road has very few spaces. That area was then, even though we were told St Leonard's Road's permit scheme was experimental, no marking, the extension to the X1 area on Dell Road was marked and signed significantly. St Leonard's Road is not marked and signed significantly. The area around Dell Road, St Leonard's Road has got 21 spaces for around 25 residents. That number is growing because there's a development of four houses being developed at the end of the road, of which the council have given the permit parking to the contractors, which has exacerbated the issue. On top of that, Dell Road has 26 spaces for 12 residents, most of which have got off-road parking and driveways. So this is a major issue for us. The unmarked nature of the scheme means that we get lots of people parking, and they probably do it quite they don't probably mean to. They probably don't realise they're in a permit zone, it's very easy for them not to realise it because there's no signpost other than the beginning signpost and the end signpost. So to let them know this. Considering the compact area that we're trying to utilise for the permit for the actual residents, this further exasperates the issues. We've had lots of people, including people for the leisure centre, which this was put in to try and stop parking there. We've even had a resident being knocked on the door when someone parked and realised they were in a permit zone, asking if they could borrow a visitor's permit. And it's really funny, but it's also quite a big issue to us, as you can imagine, causing quite a lot of aggravation. I think that's the major issues, but really this, for two reasons. One is that, I mean, the permit zone as it stands is not adequate. We need the extension into the area on Dell Road, which is never, ever busy, to allow for these issues. But also, I think it's important that the council does a lessons learned on this before it implements any other permit parking across the city. Because if the other permit parking is going to be the nature that we've received in St Leonard's Road, it is not a benefit to the residents. And I think it's an incredibly important aspect that they put right this mechanism as a matter of urgency, as a priority, not as somewhere down the list 2 years' time. It needs urgent action before any other permit work is done. And I'd ask the members of this committee to consider the views of the residents of St Leonard's Road in this action. And the one thing I would say as well, if I've got to mention this, that there is a little bit of overload parking on Fifield Road. Unfortunately, Fifield Road is not overloaded. It's quite badly lit and it's prone to vandalism. Just this week, someone parked their Mini up there because they couldn't actually park it on St Leonard's Road. It was vandalised, and I'm not talking about windows being knocked off. Somebody stamped on their boot, smashed their windscreen and fully vandalised their car, causing thousands of pounds of damage, almost to the point of writing it off as a virtually new car. And so this is really an inadequate measure that's been put in, and we would urge the action to be taken by the members of the committee to make sure that we get at least adequate parking out of this mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for that very helpful and insightful deputation, which I will reflect on later in the decision making. So thank you, Mr. Haig. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on 3 points, and I think that Mr. Hickman may be aware of at least 2 of them, and certainly the third is something that's going on. So the first one is support for Court Road. It appears quite a minor scheme in your programme, but pre-pandemic there's growing evidence that commuting from the Worthies is a cheaper or more effective way to get to work, and the growing popularity of offices in the Worthies as well meant that many of the local roads were being used as commuter parking. And Court Road is a single yellow line, and despite it being in the same road as the roads policing unit, they felt they couldn't do anything about it. So the obstruction caused is proving dangerous because people are making their way down the 347, going to turn into that road and finding they can't. So we are definitely seeing this return as the number of people start to arrive again. So I just said it looks a very small piece of work on the list, but actually I think it is something that is essential. The second one is the also parking strategy. It's included in this paper. I'm really pleased to see this in the programme. Thank you very much indeed. And we'd like to see consideration of double yellow lines as part of the ongoing work. Hampshire County Council is currently looking at an active travel scheme, which I know Mr. Hickman's aware of, for the service road adjoining Broad Street. And this includes more bike parking. It's become quite a bike destination, as many towns have, market towns have. So more bike parking and more disabled parking, and this may need a TRO too, but consultation is ongoing at the moment, and I put Mr. Hickman in touch with Tracy in touch with the officer at Winchester County Council who's doing the work. So it would be a great help if this work was included in the parking strategy, potentially provided in advance of the parking strategy. Hearteningly, there is a budget for this work led by the Hampshire County Council officer, so this may not be a problem for your own budget. And finally, the crease at Mitchell. It's a series of 3 narrow roads, and I'm sure Tracy Nuskett is very aware of it. The 3 narrow roads surrounding a small triangle of land, and parking at Mitchell is at a premium. Parents no longer get free travel to school for under 5, so they have to transport their own children to school. And in that rural area, a lot of people do. And school parking creates pressures here. So we have asked for this several years ago, but it seems to have fallen off the list. I don't quite know why, but it has. There was one road that was done double yellow lines, but not the other 2. And certainly we seem to have a problem that people park there, which creates an obstruction, which potentially could be a problem if an ambulance was required. I'd hoped to secure the support of the school for this, but the timing of this project, this paper today, makes it a bit difficult because obviously they weren't there much at the end of last summer, and they have a problem with their senior leadership team, and they are still, or they were at the time of asking to come to this meeting, still on holiday. So I respectfully ask for double line parking to be investigated at this site too. We could secure the support of the police as well if that's required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. And now I have Mr. Mills.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, Peter Mills, resident of Marnhull Rise, here speaking on behalf of a number of residents in Marnhull Rise, and thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. I'm here talking on behalf of the plan or proposal to put yellow lines. I thought they were double yellow lines, but I see it's SYL, which I presume is single yellow lines on a specific corner of Marnhull Rise. There's an issue of quite serious, I think, negligent, inconsiderate, and quite often dangerous parking on a blind corner of Marnhull Rise, which we've seen obstruct access primarily for refuse collection vehicles and other residents, but worryingly also emergency vehicles as well. Marnhull Rise, don't know, it's one of the closest roads, I think, to the town centre without any form of parking management or parking control. And as such, there's a clamour every day for people to park there to get access to either building development sites in the area, the hospital, or into the town centre. And once the conventionally available parking spaces are utilised, then people are tending to abandon cars, both obstructing private driveways, but this particular concern really is for the blind corner at the bottom of Marnhull Rise, which is a cul-de-sac road. So yeah, seeking to support the implementation of parking management, parking control there.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And I'll now take the representation from the councillors. The first one I have is Councillor Horrell.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me to address your meeting this morning. And thank you to officers for the work preparing the report and delivering the work to date. I hear very loudly the additional work that you've had during the last year or so. Chair, I have a couple of particular points I wanted to raise. As today you'll be setting the priorities for this work plan through to 23. The first is the projects that you've carried forward. I think there are 3 here. One is not required. The Alresford Parking and Access Plan, the Bishop's Waltham Parking and Access Plan, and the Park and Ride Sunday and Evening Service. I know particularly, and Councillor Porter's addressed this too, the Alresford parking situation continues to be very much top of mind for that community, and making sure that this particular piece of work is at the top of your priority list, I think will be important. So I see it carry forward and ongoing, but I'm seeking reassurance that that particular programme, and indeed the one for Bishop's Waltham, will be completed and prioritised. The other, Chair, and I understand obviously there were less people using Park and Ride during the pandemic, clearly, but the Sunday and evening services, if you're looking to give people the opportunity to use the city outside of the sort of normal Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday time, then we must actually put this programme again at the top of our list. And in our efforts to make sure we have less traffic in the city, this is as a key action. So I'd seek your reassurance that those projects that have been rolled over, as it were, do actually focus. I appreciate the tyranny of the urgent may limit time with only 2 FTEs, but clearly we're looking for your support. The other question, Chair, I have is about the strategic schemes for Winchester, detailed on the report, page 14. And that relates to some of those for the square, the Broadway, etc. And I question, and I have done this in a previous meeting about the movement strategy, which you know I'm a complete advocate for and was party to the development of that strategy. And that is that one of the key things I was advised in preparing that by Hampshire County Council, and Andy may be able to comment on this, is that to make the changes in the city, and a number of others are listed here, we need to keep as many cars out of the city as we can. And to do that, the #1 priority was to actually ensure that the additional park and ride spaces are available. And so the park and ride in the northern part of the city, enhanced places in the southern car parks, because we know that's where the majority of traffic historically has been coming from, is crucial. And so to ensure that in doing some of these other schemes, we're not just making it really hard for ourselves, so that we're not tackling the #1 activity, as I say, in the movement strategy, which was to give people the opportunity to park outside of the main centre at the enhanced park and ride facilities. So, Chair, I'd be seeking your guidance on that, given that these other projects are down as key strategic schemes for Winchester, but it seems all a bit a turnabout face, if I may say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. And Councillor Murphy.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak this morning. I wish to talk about the Highcliffe Review, which is the first item in the reserve list in Appendix 3. The Highcliffe parking restrictions were confirmed at the Cabinet Member Decision Day on 13th January 2020. It was agreed at the time that there would be ongoing monitoring of the impact of the new and amended traffic regulation orders, including in respect to bus service operations throughout the area. In general, I think the new system is working well. However, there are a couple of areas which have been identified as needing changing, and I think they should be looked at before March 2023, which will be over 3 years since the original decision. Although all the elements detailed under the Highcliffe Review in the appendix are important, I'd particularly like to draw your attention to the situation in St Leonard's Road. As you've already heard this morning, and I've seen for myself many times, St Leonard's Road is oversubscribed, while adjacent Dell Road is hardly used for parking, and there's ample space on both sides every day. This is causing problems with the bus service, and there have been several near-miss traffic incidents on the road due to the congestion. There have also been cars hit by other vehicles whilst parked on the road, and residents feel the rate of this has increased since permit parking was introduced on St Leonard's Road. This situation could be resolved by reassigning some or all of Dell Road into the X2 zone, or having Dell Road allocated for use by X and X2 permit holders. The Chalk Ridge Petersfield Road junction is in the schedule for 2021-23, which I support. However, Chalk Ridge would also benefit from the wider Highcliffe Review. In the last couple of years, residents there feel that the number of cars on the road has increased drastically. People park in the turning circle, on pavements, and in the entrance to Chalk Ridge itself. Complete review of the Highcliffe parking zones is essential to making sure the system is working as best it can for the residents, and I would ask you to consider moving it up the priority list, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. And thank you, everybody, for a very useful and helpful set of deputations. That's greatly appreciated. It would be useful, I think, to get officers considered and professional opinion on the points made in terms of the options. We had highlighted the St Leonard's and Dell review as the sort of #1 backup. Does it make sense to consider it as a sort of finishing the job in Highcliffe project, and maybe also look at Shortbridge as well? Is that something that would be doable?
I think we do acknowledge the difficulties that the scheme's created, particularly for St Leonard's Road residents. It's part of a much larger scheme that we implemented, and it's clearly had knock-on effects, which are quite difficult to anticipate with a large scheme like this. I think it certainly had benefits, that scheme, for other residents in the area, but not for these particular residents. So I think we do acknowledge the difficulties, and it would be sensible to have another look at it. Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much. If I go through, let's quickly talk about Marnhall Rise. And I was looking through the list, and I know that we have issues raised in Nightingale, which isn't listed, but also highlighted in here is Sarah View. And I suspect it's broadly the same problem, which is this is the nearest area to the city, very near all the construction work that's been going on in Chilbolton Avenue, that is uncontrolled. And we're getting very similar comments coming in. So it's very helpful to have Mr. Mills here today to talk about Marnhall Rise. But I think they're quite similar to the comments that are coming in for Sarah View, and they're quite similar to the comments that are coming in for Nightingale. So it seems to be one sort of area around Kings. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to treat that, slightly learning from the Highcliffe experience, which is you need to take a holistic view of the wider area to make sure there are no unintended consequences. So would it be an option to look at the Sarah View sort of slot in the programme and maybe give it a slightly wider scope to look at the issues in Marnhall and Nightingale at the same time, since they are all quite comparable and they're all basically one problem?
Yes, I think that does make sense. We've been somewhat restricted in what we can and can't do. We used to be able to use sort of white bar markings for issues like this. But the rules around how and where we use them have changed. Hampshire County Council are very strict on how we apply these now. And we can't use those in these situations, unfortunately, anymore, where we would normally do so as a sort of interim measure, which are quite helpful. So I think, yes, I think that would be a good idea to widen this Sarah View review out a little bit to include Marnhall Rise and other areas around the King's School. That does make sense.
And then we have the 3 points raised by Councillor Porter. The Alsford parking review and whether it's double yellow light, single yellow light. I believe we've had some very productive conversations with Hampshire on an area that was of immediate concern in Alsford. Could you perhaps give an update on that? Any other comments on that? On the Alsford park?
Yes, we have effectively started the Alsford parking and access strategy. We've had a really useful meeting with all the parties in the town and sort of worked out what the priorities are. And the parking team have started to work on some of those behind the scenes, because some of the things the town wants to be implemented aren't necessarily in this programme. There are sort of wider parking issues and things in our off-street car parks. So we've had a very productive meeting, and we have been supporting the town council in the Broad Street scheme as well over the last year and a half, and that's the scheme that the town council would like to keep, to retain, and Hampshire County Council have agreed to take that forward and to lead on that project. And as Councillor Porter said, they have allocated some funding towards it, so I think our role in that might be quite limited, but we would certainly support that one as well.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. The Crease at Mitchelldale. I believe you have views on the Crease at Mitchelldale.
Well, I think really the difficulty in Mitchell River is it is a village location, and the roads are narrow, widening the traffic and the parking can be a problem. But the difficulty is when in an area like that particularly, if you're putting in some restrictions, you will displace vehicles, and in this sort of area, you're going to probably displace it to other locations that may have safety or obstruction issues as a result. So it's not always the best way forward to put restrictions in. And we normally, in any issue, in a situation where there's school parking issues, we normally liaise with the county council. We have a travel planning team, and they work with the school to try and educate parents and influence parking habits. And as such, I have passed this across. I haven't had an update on what work's been done or whether they've made contact with the school, but I have passed that issue over to Hampshire, so I can chase up on that and see where they are with it.
Thank you. I probably need to declare an interest because I'm also a county councillor. That's helpful perspective, and certainly my experience has been that where school travel plans include specific highway stations, they very often get priority either from Hampshire or they get passed through to us. And it would be useful if there could be consensus between the county and the school on that one. And Court Road, I don't know about. We got that in the list up, we looked at it.
Yes, I believe Court Road is on the list. We put it down as a safety scheme because it's in a junction with a crossroad. It's a crossroad junction, London Road and Court Road.
So it's already in. Yeah, so it's already in.
Yeah.
Okay, so Court Road is good. And then the points made by Councillor Horrell, Alresford and Bishop's Altham are obviously already highlighted as in the programme as a priority. I think it's a useful reminder about park and ride extended hours, which would probably fit neatly into our wider discussion about buses as well, and also our plans for signage and parking as far as park and ride and the other car parks are concerned, and charges. And park and ride north, I think primarily at the moment sits with the county in terms of a planning obligation that we have with the King's Barton development and would be seeking to put in place on the St John Moore Barracks development. And I'm right in saying I think that the Park and Ride North scheme options were worked up as part of the stage 2 movement strategy studies. Is that what I'm saying?
Yes, we've got a number of work streams as part of the Winchester Movement Strategy. As you say, we've got a bus strategy which is being developed at the moment, which the county council are leading on, and is a requirement of the government's national bus strategy. So that's an important piece of work, which gives us all sorts of opportunities and hopefully funding which will come with that, which could help with some of the priorities we're looking to do. One of the other work streams obviously is the park and ride additional capacity that we're trying to provide around the city in different locations. To the north of the city it is somewhat complicated because, as you say, we've got the King's Barton planning obligation to provide a park and ride, and we have an approved planning application and approved highway schemes which direct buses through the development, through the community areas and pick up there. What we're looking at in addition to that now is providing additional capacity further to the north of the city. That's part of the further developments in that area, which is sort of coming through the planning process, through the local plan and through various sort of pre-planning advice applications. And we are talking with the County Council and the developers and the MOD about how that could be achieved. What we do need to work out is how the two schemes work together. And we've got a joint Hampshire County Council, Winchester City Council Winchester Movement Strategy Board coming up, and it's on the agenda at that meeting to talk about what the strategy is going forward. So we don't have all the answers at the moment, but there's a lot of opportunities coming forward that will support the movement strategy.
That's great. So it's covered in a different piece of work, but it is definitely happening that to progress Park and Ride North, which is a big priority. Council Hall also mentioned Park and Ride South and Winnell. She didn't mention Winnell, but that is also effectively in the scheme, the Eastern Lane Park and Ride options. But my recollection, aside from Voltex, which I'm just going to drive to finish at the moment, the reports had them in for about 2031, so they're quite some time in the future. And then I think the other thing that people look with that we have also committed to in stage 2 reports is a post-COVID, what exactly is going on with parking review. At the moment, as you can imagine, the council is extremely interested in terms of what's happening with parking patterns, working patterns, are people coming back to work, what impact does that have on our parking pressures? That will feed into some of the timings and priorities that we put behind this work, I think, because we need to know that we've reached a stable state when it comes to some of the projects in terms of whether they have a consult, for example. But that's very helpful, thank you. Right, in terms of the decision in front of me, we have had one scheme withdrawn, which is the Shawford Various Roads Station Car Park scheme. And that is being taken out. And so I would like to add in the Highcliffe review, that's currently the first reserve project, to take its place. In terms of Marnhall Rise, I would like that to be considered within the project that's currently highlighted as the Sarum View project, to take a wider view of parking pressures in the area around King's School, either in the immediate area next to King's School or on Sarum Road. And otherwise, I think we've more or less addressed all the points that have been raised. It was touched on at the beginning, but I would like to take this opportunity while we're here, ahead of finally approving this paper with the changes I highlighted, to thank you both for your amazing amount of work in the last year during the difficult period of COVID, and in particular the very intensive engagement that has been made with people affected by the square of Great Minster Street closure, where we actively engaged with all the businesses, all the residents, as well as the county, worked very effectively with all of them, enabled us to develop a scheme which is quite different from the one that they originally put in place, which has buy-in and became the only active travel scheme in the whole of Hampshire to stay in place after the end of social distancing regulations, and which has also enabled us, for example, to keep the market in the Broadway. I know you did a lot of other things as well, but that one in particular, your work was quite exceptional and much appreciated. So, as well as approving the paper in front of me today with the changes that I highlighted, I'd like to particularly thank you for your work that you've done during lockdown, because it's greatly appreciated. So on that basis, I don't think there's anything else I need to do. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for very helpful deputations, and I declare the meeting closed.